Welcome to JDM Imported.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to the JDM Imported podcast. This is episode 14. I'm your host, Dante Prinzo, owner of Elusive Auto Company, as well as Elusive Auto Shine detailing for all your fine detailing needs. So listen, as always, thanks for the listen. Thanks for the support. You know, I'm excited to get another episode in. And full disclosure, as always, as you know, if you've listened, this is the journey of the start of my business, you know, from a hobby to brick and mortar, which looks like I'm still on track to start the brick and mortar for the importing business, as well as the detailing. And this little spot here, this 5-minute intro, is recorded separately from the rest of the episode. And that's simply because I'm microphone issues. I'll tell you what, the most frustrating thing about a podcast isn't thinking of topics, isn't like checking analytics to see how many people are listening to. It's recording an episode and then having equipment failure. So my first 5 minutes intro, my microphone was having issues when I went for playback. So if the audio sounds a little different from here to like 10 minutes in, my apologies. But hey, again, you're always going to get a clear picture, a window, not a door, into what I'm doing here. So whatever, it's just something we're going through. So sitting at the kitchen table, chatting a little bit. As always, you can find me social media. Feel free to DM, email me. So it's Dante at Elusive Auto Co. ELUSIVE Auto Co. And you know, I'd appreciate a follow on the detailing side of things too. I'm trying to at least get a little more recognition out there for that. So it's Elusive Auto Co. for all the JDM goodies. Elusive Auto Shine. You know, if you want to follow along, if you know, put up some stuff, some little how-tos, maybe some products I've used, stuff like that might be helpful if you're into it. If not, totally understand. You know, sometimes those things don't cross over. So, but yeah, as always, you guys guide the show. You know, I really listen to what you say, and that's how I want this to work. I want this to kind of be my stampede, right? The ear to the ground, so you can hear kind of what's coming before it's there. And that's what I wanted this podcast to be, a transparent view that you guys can learn something from, provoke thought even at least, but also it's a very helpful tool for me to kind of see what people are interested in, what they're asking for, what they're curious about, you know, because that's where I want to take the podcast so you guys get the most out of it, and it's going to be paramount to helping my business, you know, so I'm not ever going to be too divorced from the consumer. I want to be a consumer that's creating fans, not a businessman creating customers, because customers come and go. Fans, whether they buy something from you or not, help you. And in turn, I think you have the obligation to help them for free, you know, not just try to squeeze every cent out. So, you know, just like the services, I mean, not to plug or anything, but I mean, my services now, they're starting to ramp up a little more since I'm a little bit handicapped as to the cars that I can bring in North Carolina before I leave. So I'm putting a little more emphasis on the consulting, you know, so if somebody wants to bring a specific car in, but they want to be involved in it, I can be there basically as your, you know, 24/7 shadow. If you have questions about, you know, the documents, we can do a shared screen on filling them out, step by step, how to, you know, picking up the car, all the kind of pitfalls, things you're going to run into. And then also, you know, for people that want kind of the full service, you know, sourcing the car, you know, where you get 30 pictures, a startup, you know, a lot of details more so than, you know, just what you're going to get logging onto websites. You know, not that it's bad, you know, like Japan Partners, stuff like that. I mean, they're fine resources, but you don't get a lot of details. So there's a lot more risk, right? So, you know, this way you get a little more, you know, you get free translation of every auction sheet. Like I said, the pictures of top side, underside, inside, outside, verification that it starts up, it holds oil pressure, all that stuff that I think is important, because at the end of the day, these are classics. There's always going to be surprises, but if you can mitigate those, I always think it's worth it. So, that's something I want to continue to let people know that's out there, and help them out with it to help grow the community, but also, keeps me in the game while I'm waiting to be able to bring more cars in. So that's that. So before I get into some of the things we're going to cover in this episode, I did want to touch on something, we'll call it a little internal reflection time. So, things are going well, like I said, on track for the move from North Carolina here to Pittsburgh. Family's going to be moving up there, and I'm looking for shop space, and in that space we'll have the, getting the dealership license and all that stuff. So we'll have the cars and other services, because as I've mentioned before, I don't think in general, it's a good idea to just have a single pointed focus business. At least in this sector, right? I mean, if you're selling a widget, you're selling a widget. If it's specific, whatever. You're not going to be offering services all around it. But, automotive, dealership, like anything else, you need other streams of revenue. That's why I started up the detailing portion, because that's something I want to offer. Because, quite frankly, and the thing I really like most is, rejuvenating cars. And like I've said, even if this is a 4-grade auction car that's been imported, if somebody really wants a clean example, it's going to need, 10 to 20 hours of serious love. So that's, something I can offer. If someone wants a car that's ready to roll, ready to take to a show, and obviously another revenue stream as things might be slow, because it's seasonal, it's cyclical. So that's what I wanted to share, for any of you. And obviously I get a lot of questions again about, people want to bring in parts, people that want to bring in cars and do builds. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. So, but I think just kind of sharing what I'm going through can be helpful. Hopefully it is. Let me know if it is. If it's not, let me know too. Again, I like the feedback. I answer all emails and DMs, good, bad, or indifferent. So luckily it's been good thus far. But anyway, so, before we get into it, I was thinking about business and kind of where I am right now. I'm anxious, right? It's been years. I'm really antsy to get, I feel like it's not official until I have my benchmarks hit. And my benchmarks are brick and mortar and in hiring, making my first hire. So that poses the question, give us some thought, and let me know your feedback, and again, this isn't to put anyone down. It's something that I've thought about myself, is what makes a business official? What makes it appropriate to say this is my business as opposed to this is my hobby, right? Because we can have a lot of hobbies. I consider it when I, bought and sold sneakers. That's a hobby. That wasn't a business. Yeah, I made some money, but mainly I did it because it was fun, and I like limited edition sneakers. It was a way to kind of pay for that habit, if you will. And but I would never say it was a business. Does making a business when you file for a name and taxes and stuff? That's all the stuff I've gone through. It's legitimate now. I'm filed with the IRS, all that stuff. Have been for a while, but it still doesn't feel worthy of celebration. And I'm kind of waiting for that moment. When's that moment when I'll be like, boom, I hit it, my milestone, my goal, which. I have lofty goals, and my goal is never to hit all my goals. I always keep changing them. But, does it, now me personally, thinking about it, I'm not going to feel validated, feel like I've kind of, I can say this is my business until I hit the benchmark of not supporting myself, not supporting the business, but being able to support someone else. I feel like that and the brick and mortar are really going to solidify it for me. Is it, is it not a business if you're just by yourself? Absolutely no. If it's something that, you can pay your bills and get by, you're happy with it, that's fine. But just for me, that's my benchmark to say hey, I did it. I accomplished what I set out to accomplish, was to turn this hobby into a business that can sustain itself and somebody else. So, And that's what I'm thinking about now, that all-important first hire. It's a small business. Clearly, it's me. I do everything. I do the marketing. I do the wrench work. I do the detailing work. I do the sourcing, the logistics for import. Like, I do it all, right? And, I'm going to need somebody that, can offer a little more than just being good with RB and JZ motors, or someone that's just good, more than good with, paint correction, whatever it may be. So I wanted to just really pose that question, and again, there's no right or wrong answer. I love that people come to me with these ideas. I want to help them. As always, I think the more that are in this industry, that are bringing parts in, cars over, the better it is for all of us, because a lot of my time is spent educating people, and the more consumers out there that digest content or information from people other than me, my thought is the better it is for me, right? It's just like, I'll give you a quick sidebar on our sidebar. We're still not on topic yet, but that's cool. We'll get there. I'm just talking here. I'm just rapping to you guys a bit. So quick sidebar to that point is, for instance, my M5 that I'm selling. It's a personal car, so I'm not really, pushing it too much on the website. It kind of doesn't really go with the brand, and I don't want things to get kind of mixed up between cars that come in and I refurbish and get ready for sale and something that's my personal car. So it's, an E60 M5, V10 2006 model, and I'm getting rid of it. I don't need it for anything really. It was my only car, my everyday car, so it gave me that thrill, it gave that grumble, that that feel and that enthusiast feel, and I could fit 2 seats in the back, child seats, but I have the truck now for the business, and it's kind of a luxury I don't need. So it's out of here. Free up some cash to continue things going forward. So in that, I've been running across people looking at my M5 that are BMW enthusiasts and some that are not. It's perfectly fine for someone not to be an enthusiast. I like talking. I like teaching. Really, sharing what I know is a lot of fun. Sharing and listening, because obviously I don't know anything. I know a very small fraction of what there is to know. And, Japanese cars, German cars, there's a lot of complexity to it. So I'm never going to say that I'm an expert. But I like sharing things that I've been through and I know. And so I'm fine with people coming to me that are, maybe haven't done any research on the car, don't know any of the kind of historical maintenance things and stuff that you're going to have to be aware of. But, it's one of those times I take a step back, and I've gone through, a couple test drives with people that are like, the transmission, I think something's wrong. Or it just doesn't feel like it has much low end torque. I think something's wrong. And I think to myself, well, yeah, this is why I'm sharing and I'm helping answer questions to people that could be my competitors. And the reason I'm doing that is just for this, because there will be more knowledge and education out there. Because for specific cars like my M5, it's not like it's a rare car, but it's different. It's like the equivalent of the RX-8, right? So the RX-8 was a mass-produced rotary. They produced a lot of units. Obviously, it didn't sell as well as Mazda had hoped, and I think a lot of that was miseducation. So you had a lot of non-enthusiasts buying a rotary motor that didn't really understand the intricacies of taking care of it, of starting it up. A dealer might go over on delivery, hey, you need to let it idle, you can't just move it and turn it off, start it, stop it, and inch it around your garage all the time, you're going to cause issues. So with that came a lot of issues. The rotary motor was seemingly unreliable because you had a lot of people, a lot of numbers, sales numbers of people that just weren't properly taking care of them. And by no fault of their own, it's just lack of information, lack of knowledge. They're not in it, right? They're not in the culture. So, and I don't get frustrated when I come across things like that selling my M5, because it's kind of it's a bit of a specialized car, so I have these people, that drive and are like, oh, something's wrong with the transmission. I'm like, well, absolutely nothing's wrong with it, because if you've been around that car, if anything's a slight bit off, it's in limp mode. It doesn't do anything. We're talking, especially with the SMG, if there was a drop in pressure with the hydraulic system that engages the clutch, if there's anything, it's obvious. The thing runs like trash. So the fact that it turns on, it shifts smoothly, runs through all the paces is usually all you need to know that it's good. I mean, it's either working or it isn't. And on top of that, I have the DIS software, which is like the dealership software. So I've run all the tests and everything's healthy without getting into too many like German details. But, so I've been running into that. People are like, something's wrong with the transmission. I'm like, no, it's a 2006. It's, SMG, it's an automated clutch. It's not going to feel like an auto. It's not like a twin disc these days, which everyone's used to, that shifts instantly. It shifts slow like, a human would when they're driving easy. And when they drive fast, it shifts like you power shifted and slammed it in the gear, and it clunks and it chirps tire, and it's, it's not refined at all. It's, 13 years old. But I don't know. I just wanted to share that with you because I think it kind of presents that point that I've made about, I think it's just good to grow the marketplace and get more information out there, because like in this instance, if someone did some research, maybe they came to me with different expectations, right? I think they came with expectations of supercar, 500 horsepower, V10, it's going to throw me in my seat. It's $100,000 new. It's going to be super refined. But the reality of it, it's 13 years old. It's nowhere near worth that much anymore. It's like worth 16 and some change. And it's very old technology, and it feels like it. So you're into it for a different feel, a different type of engagement. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I will always answer those questions. I'm glad that a lot of you are getting into it, that are interested in importing, that are trying to bring some parts over, cars, that have maybe taken me up on my advice. I've had some people follow up of my last podcast where you want to get into parts, get one. Get a small part through Yahoo Auctions, create an account. Anyone can do it. Do the translation on Google so you know what you're doing. You have to send them some money to open your account, but it's just an easy way to get a JDM part. It's not going to be a huge margin. It might not be a margin at all, but it'll get you engaged, understanding the process, because like I've said, with cars, with parts, read about it till you're blue in the face. It doesn't stick until you go through it. And even then, it's always a moving target. There's always rules and changes and tweaks and things locally, federally, that you're going to have to negotiate through. Always. So you're not just going to have, like me, I have a 20-point process I go through. There's always a little bit of a hitch. The thing is, you've been through it and you anticipate it, and it's not a problem. So just get through it. Just get started. And I'm here for you. I'm here to answer any questions. So, on this episode, huge lead-in, obviously. I get on these tangents. I hope you guys like it. Let me know. You know what? Let me know. Send me some messages if you think I ramble on too much about my experiences, if I sound like a know-it-all. Let me know. I mean, because like I said, I enjoy feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, really. I'm not just one that's going to say, hey, if you like what you hear, leave a positive review. If you don't, call me out. That's fine. But my safety net here is always that I never claim to be an expert. I am sharing what I've gone through. Hopefully it helps you, avoid some pitfalls, avoid some mistakes, or maybe it's just entertaining to listen to, whatever. So I wanted to get into some, so last episode I talked about importing non-running cars. So people asking about like chassis and stuff like that. And I went into some detail about it not really being, there's always exceptions. So you're always going to find somebody that did it and saved a lot of money, and it was a good thing for like maybe a build they wanted to start or maybe a car they wanted to track. But I like to operate on rules, and something that's a little more general is that it's not usually cost effective for whatever you save on the value of it, because it's not running right or it's without motor, shell, whatever it may be, is usually negated in the extra costs. So I'm going to share a story, actually something interesting that that I didn't go through personally, but I've heard of. I've talked to somebody that went through it importing a car, and I just want to share the story with you. Maybe it might shed a little more light, because I know I was throwing a bunch of stuff at you last episode about that, and I think this might bring it to more of a personal level and maybe some little nuances that I didn't cover there before. But about bringing a car in, maybe that isn't a roller, but maybe something that that's just rough. So I talked about like the ones that are going to need rebuilt, but maybe one that's just rough, that maybe just has an engine noise or smoke or whatever it may be to save money. So we're going to talk about that. I also want to go over a couple, wintertime. We've talked about all-wheel drive cars. Haven't really talked much about trucks. Now I'm far from an expert in the trucks, but there's some pretty cool ones out there that share some parts with the US models, but offer maybe some cooler engines, some other little nuances there that maybe you're not aware of, maybe you are, but just to talk about and get it out there. Some trucks that are, available for importing that I think are really cool, to give kind of a twist on, if you're looking for a daily, whether it be something to like do a resto mod, like on an old 610 Datsun, where you can put, name your Skyline motor or L Series, whatever it is, or something that's a little more utilitarian, like Toyota Helix, Nissan Patrol, Nissan Safari, stuff like that. So, and obviously we know the Land Cruisers and all that, but I'm going to talk about trucks a little bit. And then also going to throw in a kind of an oddball. We'll call it oddball of the day. I think I'm going to start doing this with the podcast. I'm going to pick out a car that isn't super well known. There's not a ton of them, but can be had for a nice price and, have some parts easy to source in the States. It could be a fun build that will have you looking like, that will have you bringing attention at Cars and Coffee like a McLaren would, just because you have this weird car that no one's seen before. So I'm going to talk about, actually I have two oddballs we're going to chat a little bit about right-hand drive stuff. So yeah, and I'm going to start off with an update as always. So business update, where I'm at right now. I might get interrupted. My kid's going to be home from school in like 10 minutes. So if he does, whatever, that's what it's going to be. Again, transparent view on what's going on in my life. I actually had a day here. I've been doing a lot of detailing, ramping up Elusive Auto Shine. If you haven't already, please, follow, because I have like 0 following out there. It's just Elusive Auto Shine on social, page on Facebook and Instagram there. So, and I'll just, post tips and cars I've been working on. Because, listen, even if we're into, whether you're into tracking your car, showing your car, obviously, these are things I've been around a lot. So whether it's restoring a car and prepping it for a show, or whether it's, just taking the appropriate measures of protection for a track car, stuff, sealing the wheels, whatever it may be. So I'll throw in some fun things like that in the feed if you want to follow. If you're not into it, that's fine. But so I've been busy with that until probably last week. This time of year is really slow for detailing here. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, but it gets cold and it snows. Not much snow, but when it's cold, people usually don't think to detail. I'm fine with it. It'll change some products that I use. It'll change some techniques, to get the job done, depending on what sealants I'm working with, what coatings, if we're doing a ceramic. But yeah, so it's been a slower time of year, which is stressful from an income standpoint, but I'm always a silver lining guy. This has freed up some time, so I've had some time to kind of reevaluate my strategies, maybe put a little more time into my website, which is basic at best. I did it myself. It's okay, it gets some information across, but this has given me a chance to see like how I'm going to funnel people there, because again, I talk about having fans, and it's null and void if people can't find you. So obviously it's paramount for me to get out there a little more and share some stuff and find a better way to use the website, something more engaging rather than just, you Google search me, you find it, and you're like, okay, whatever. There's like 2 cars in inventory. This dude does detailing, whatever. I get no value out of it. I want to provide some value. So, I'm working on, setting up a blog, a little more information that kind of encapsulates these podcasts and maybe a little more information, since I only do these, every 2 or 3 weeks. But something like that's more engaging. So putting some more time in on that. And you might have heard, I've been having ridiculous issues with this microphone. I have another one too. For some reason, it's not interfacing well with my computer. So halfway through this podcast, it might just switch over to my phone, because I always use that as backup. But either way, I want to keep it coming, and I don't want my equipment to be an excuse not for making these, because I love making these podcasts. And like I said, I've really enjoyed the interaction I've had out there with you guys. But so the detailing's been going well. This extra time's been good, like I said, to get people in, get things lined up with the move, to Pittsburgh. So, we're far off, and like I mentioned in the previous episode, there's a lot of things I'm trying to put together here, because since the recent changes in the shipping company that I usually go with, WWL. They only want to deal with brokers now for customs. So I don't want to deal with brokers. It's redundant. And it's not only the paying them the money, because it's not a ton, but it's still kind of ridiculous what they charge to fill out a couple sheets that I have experience filling out. I've always done by myself. I've always submitted them by myself in person at the port. So, I'm trying to find ways around that, and my only solution thus far is to become a broker myself. So now, and if any of you have any experience with this, hit me up, because I'm trying to figure out if it's worth it for me to do the coursework. I mean, it's a really hard test to pass. A ton of reference material. And I mean, listen, people do this for careers. I would just be doing this as an accompaniment to the services I already offer. So it's like, is this, 3-4 months of studying, taking a test that, less than 10% passed the first time out, so I might have to do it multiple times. I've been at a test taking forever. Who knows how hard it's going to be for me? It might take me 3 times. It's going to be a big expense, a lot of time, and it's just to solve this little problem. But I think in moving forward and just in seeing how this business goes and how it is to work with these different organizations, that the more I can cut out, the better. And it's just it's just the time, it's the stress, and really I always like to be ahead of change, because my thought is, this is one shipping company that makes this change. There's only 2 that I deal with that come out of Japan regularly to the ports that I use, out of that come out of Yokohama or Tokyo, whatever it is. There's 2 companies, so one of them has changed their policy. So I mean, that means if the other one does, like, I'm totally stuck dealing with brokers, and I don't want to do that. So does it make sense? I don't know. What do you think? Does it make sense for me to get ahead of the curve and all the time it's going to take for this? I mean, really, money-wise, it's going to save me like $150 a car, which adds up, but it's not much. I mean, I'd have to import, 10 or 12 cars for it to pay for the coursework and the tests and all that stuff to even break even. So it's not really from that standpoint, but like an efficiency, a flexibility. I'd be able to do more bringing cars in for people to really cut everyone out, so they're just dealing with me, which I think just makes everything more seamless and enjoyable if you're the customer, So yeah, if you have any experience out there with passing an import broker test, I know it's a long shot, but share it with me. Let me know what your thoughts are. And even if you have any feedback, if you think that it's a good use of time, because I'm struggling. I'm going back and forth, So I have this time. I mean, I started this whole little conversation because I have free time this time of year because the detailing's slow, and inventory is what it is. I'm not really looking to get any more cars before we take the move. So there's this lull, and it's like, is this the best use of time? Should I be putting more time into the website? Should I be putting more time into social media? Should I be putting more time into, getting things lined up in Pittsburgh, for the move? It's tough. I mean, I feel like this next 6 months is going to be way harder than whatever I went through starting the business. And that's why I like to share this stuff, because you might be going through the same thing. You might be like, man, is this worth it? Is it? No one can answer that. No one can sit there and say, yeah, opening your own business is totally worth it, because it might not be for you. I mean, in my experience, the ones that win are the ones that can hold their breath the longest. Some people don't like being underwater. You know what I mean? Some people aren't comfortable holding their breath. So, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. I mean, it takes all kinds to make the world go round. And you're going to have times like it was a hobby that turned into something that was worth it. So then that's kind of when things are good, because you're like, oh, this hobby's like making money and I enjoy it. And, I can see myself being able to transition. And then you're going to go through a time where you have to start all the way over, where it's like, you got to reinvest, you need some property, dealer license, all these other things that I'm looking into incorporate, because you need different revenue streams for a business to stay afloat. We could want to bring in classic Japanese cars all we want, and get excited about bringing in, expensive ones, cheap ones, whatever it is. I'm bringing some classic Skylines or some track cars or FDs, whatever it is. Like, yeah, that's all sexy and exciting, but I mean, let's be real, like anything, you need other revenue streams because there's going to be wintertime where there's a lull. There's going to be market changes, there's probably in 3 years, there's going to be a big, crash in the market. So people aren't going to have as much expendable income for just fun cars. So are you ready for that shift? That's probably, things are going great and then I'm going to have to reinvent again. And that's exciting to me, but it's also, I think it's healthy. It's healthy for me to talk about it out loud. It just gets my brain working in a different way. And sometimes third-party perspective is the clearest perspective. So, whenever you guys chime in and have a thought or share an email, that's why I always appreciate. And I've sometimes it shifts the track that I'm thinking because I always want to listen to the consumers, people out there that are, buying these things around these things. So I don't know. So we're looking in the broker license. I'm still undecided there. I have to make a choice soon because I think in April is the next test, and they say you need like 3-4 months to study. So we'll see about that. And then the other thing is just the space, in Pittsburgh. All the things I'm gonna have to figure out regarding getting a dealership license, a standalone building, and then I have to put stuff in it. So the goal is to have 0 cars. I have the Cedric, I have the FC. So I need to get those sold before we move. So stay tuned because if those things are still around for like 3 or 4 more months, it might be a bit of a fire sale. Someone's going to get a hell of a deal. But you know what? That is okay because I'd rather it go somewhere and someone enjoy it than me lug it up to Pittsburgh, try to find a place for it when I'm trying to fix a place up, do the flooring, whatever it is in a shop. So I want to have nothing and start fresh there. That is the goal. Lean and start fresh. But So yeah, that's where I'm at with the business. As always, appreciate the listen for that and any kind of feedback. So here's the deal with the trucks, right? So actually, no. Before the trucks, I just want to get into to the bringing in of track cars. And this will only be like 5-10 minutes because if you haven't heard it, I went into detail bringing in cars, shells, and whatnot in the previous episode. So check it out. But I keep getting questions about it. I've had another handful of emails just this week about it. So here's the thing. I'm going to share a story with you about someone that wanted to bring over a track car. So, and this is a car that they were going to rebuild the engine, that they were going to, totally gut it, full suspension work. So it's like, why do I need like a 3.5 or 4 grade auction car? That's a waste of money. I want to bring in something that needs paint work, needs body work, maybe has some smoke issues, some engine issues, whatever it may be. So they start sourcing it, right? They find an FD that they really like. It's kind of the perfect thing, right? It's not, it's an R grade, which means it had a repair, but nothing bent frame, no replaced radiator cores, whatever it may be. Everything looked straight. It was just, there was some corrosion. The paint was totally faded out, so it needed a total paint job. And it started and it ran, but it just blows smoke, right? So, FD guys out there, rotary heads, you guys are tuning in right now. Ears are flopping around. You're like, yep, it can be this. This is why you stay away from it. But I don't know. If you hear that, you do the auction report, I don't believe the guy had someone start it up. It was just based on the auction report. So maybe things would be different if, like my contact over there, we will FaceTime, start up, listen, 30-some pictures. So maybe I'll take a chance on that. But without all of that, this is what can happen to you. So what happens is he wins the car, gets it for a great price, right? So nice. An FD, perfect platform for whatever he wanted to do with it. Road race. I actually don't know. I don't know the guy personally. This is a story through a dealer in Japan. So he export stuff. All that stuff's done. So it's at port waiting to leave. So row shipping. Just in case you don't know, row is short for roll on, roll off, and that's where they ship the car. They have to drive it onto the boat, and it ships in the belly of the ship. My opinion, best way to ship a car. because you don't have forklifts moving it around, or shipping containers are really expensive unless you fill them up. And still with people putting them in there, opening the doors and whatever. I think honestly, Ro-Ro, it's enclosed, it's in the belly of the ship. Yes, people are starting and driving it, so you could be susceptible to some scrapes on lower cars, but for the price point, it's the way to do it. That being said, the car's at port. It's ready to roll. It's waiting to hop on the ship. Now, they go to start it, to drive it onto the boat. Doesn't start. Not a big deal, right? Because the port handlers, the packers, if you will, they always have jump boxes because the cars usually sit and they'll be dead. So they'll jump it and whatever. They'll get it on there. They will not push it. They will not tow it, though. So it needs to get in on its own accord. And this is why it's so paramount having the right person in Japan, because if it's there with too much gas, if it has a leak you don't know about, anything, it could be stranded. And this, again, disclaimer, can't stress enough, and maybe this is self-promoting, but I don't care because I know it's important. I have someone that looks at everything that's more scrupulous than I am with cars. And if you don't have that, it's such a risk, because if there's a drop, if it starts leaking rad fluid or oil, they might not put it on the boat, or if it has too much gas, there's going to be an extra fee, or if it needs to be raised or lowered. If you're dealing with someone that doesn't offer those services or have the foresight to say, I don't think this is going to hit the approach angle, we need to look at adjusting the suspension. You don't want to wait until it's too late, miss the shipping schedule, or leave it to a local, like someone you don't know, or a packer to sort things out for you. You know what I mean? So it is paramount to have that person, especially if you're going to have a car that's not perfect. Let's be real. None of them are. I don't even care if it's a 4 grade. There's always issues. They're classics. So let's always think about that. I don't care the mileage, the grade, the score, the sheet, always going to be a surprise. Might be small, might be shitty, but there's always going to be a surprise. All about expectations. So the car doesn't start. Jump box goes on. It starts. It then dies. Okay, fine. They jump it again. It then dies. Jump it a third time. It dies. It's smoking. So that's it. So really, packer's done. They move on to the next thing. So it's on you, or whoever you know over there. Hopefully someone that knows their shit and that's got it together, to get things rectified before the ship goes, or else you're gonna have to leave it there for the next ship. And sometimes they're not super frequent, especially this time of year. So then you're gonna have to start to pay some storage fees, at the port. So this car wasn't. It was stalling essentially. Wouldn't get in gear. It was stalling, so it was stranded there. So then this person, and I'm not going to put any names out there, but they bought it from a broker and exporter based in Japan that does high volume, but there's not a lot of detail. So they'll throw out a lot of bids on stuff, not really live bidding, but you can usually get good deals using them. But again, there's not a lot of detail. And since this person thinks, well, I'm not looking for a pristine one, I don't need a lot of detail. Contrary, if you're looking for one that's rough, you need the most detail, because this is not a sight unseen like you're living in Georgia and you're buying something in Pennsylvania. This is another country. Once it's here, it's yours. There's no restitution. You're not going to send it back because someone didn't tell you it had low compression or whatever. So the next thing you have to do there, you're at the helm of who can find who to fix it. So there's some people that come in and out of the ports that'll fix things, that'll work for exporters. Some of them have people on site that'll do, minor things like raise coilovers, or, if there's a spark issue, maybe some easy troubleshooting to get the car to start. And they charge a fee, and it's not crazy. So I'm not saying if the car stalls, you're stuck, you got to send it to a local shop to work on it. There is stuff that can be done there, but they don't allow too much in there. It's basically the tools you can carry or fit in the back of one of the small parts trucks, whatever it may be, and take care of the issue. So So since this was not starting installing, then they looked underneath and they saw an oil leak. Now, you can have an oil leak and have a car drive fine, right? Like, we've all been there. There's been a leak, like, as long as you still have compression, I mean, you could drive for thousands of miles on a leak, you know? I mean, what's a leak? A leak could be anything. A leak could be, you know, precursor for major engine failure, or it could just be a oil filter that wasn't tightened all the way, you know? Or maybe just a seal going around the oil pan, you know, like, or it could be a rear main seal. A million things, right? We don't need to get into what causes oil leaks. Suffice it to say, there's an oil leak, and they don't want leaks on the ship, if at all. I mean, there's definitely going to be drops and drips here and there. I'm not saying they're with a microscope, but definitely if a car has starting issues, they're going to look at it with a little more detail. So this car is then stuck there at the port. It's nothing that the locals, and I think the company you used too, didn't really have a solution. So this person had to scramble, find somebody that, I don't know what you want to call, I mean, we'll just call them a broker to like a local, to some of the local shops. So someone that was like English speaking, that would find a place to fix it and arrange for transport to get it there. Not easy to do. And then also, again, we're kind of at the mercy of this shop. So the shop might say, I don't know, like it's a rotary, it might need all new seals. To do that, I mean, the whole motor has to be broken down. It could be that, or it could be, you know, something small. It could be a vacuum issue, you know, which they have a million vacuum lines. So, but I mean, that's pretty easy to troubleshoot. But you really don't have that level of communication to say, hey, you know what, just do this, bypass this, I just need to get it running. So to wrap this one up, essentially this is someone that wanted to bring over a car, save some money to get one that's rough running, didn't have a good contact, if you will, didn't have good communication, and ended up, they got it to a shop, which I thought was super resourceful, because usually the exporter has some contacts and should do that. That wasn't the case, so he was kind of on his own to find somebody that could connect him with a shop, arrange pickup, but, you know, got hit with a hefty bill for towing in and out of there, you know, because you need a local shop or a transport company that has, you know, clearance that can go in and out of the port. Most shops won't have that, so then they have to hire somebody to transport it there. Even if it's 10 miles, it's going to be a decent fee. So I had to pay some extra for that. And then also they ended up essentially saying it needed a rebuild. He didn't really believe it. He wasn't buying it. But they said that's the only way to stop the oil leak. If you want to risk, there were some other options, I don't know the details, other options to fix it, but they couldn't guarantee that it would stop the leak, and it might get to port and they'd have to bring it back. So so the long and short of it is he ended up doing a rebuild with a shop he wasn't familiar with. And I don't know what he did once he brought it back. Like in my mind, I probably would have had it torn down again, just because I don't know who did the work and what happened, but this was a small issue that really got blown out of proportion, and I don't think is an outlier. You know, just from and I've heard other smaller type stories like this where, you know, people had just outrageous fees to get things, really simple things fixed, changed, altered, bumpers removed, whatever it may be, just to get the car on the boat. You know, I've even had people have to pay a crazy amount of fee because they had to drain the tank because the exporter didn't have the tank down, you know, which is kind of curious because usually auction houses make them have it below a certain amount, but who knows? Maybe some of the remote ones up north, there's a ton of auction houses in Japan, aren't as strict with that, so who knows? But anyways, I wanted to share that story, not to discourage anyone. I still think that it can be done. You can find something that's rougher and give it a good home, especially if you're looking to do a build, but it's something you should just be aware of, you know, that it's not just like, well, whatever, they'll push it on the boat. I mean, there's certain things that you're one of the thousands of cars that go through there daily, so they're only going to spend so much time on it. If it doesn't work right, they're going to move on to the next, and it's up to you to get things solved, up to you to find a solution, which isn't easy when you're a country away. across the ocean, wherever you may be. Speaking a different language, it's not easy. So yeah, I mean, whenever something says engine smoke, things like that, yes, chances are you're not going to have someone sit there and run a compression test, but just these are things you need to be aware of. So if you're saving money on it, make sure it's a lot. You know, if it's the difference, like say if you're looking at FD and the difference between a clean one and one that's rough, typically isn't as much as you would think. You know, it might be a couple grand, unless it has a lot of mods on it. But if we're doing apples to apples, a kind of stock car, one that's clean, one that's rough, not a huge difference. So, and that couple grand could easily be scooped up, you know, because your options are two. You have two options. One to fix it, have someone fix it over there, which is kind of like good luck. And option two is to ship it on pallets, which is more expensive. It's not crazy. It's not double. It's maybe almost double, depending on the car. But they essentially move it around with a forklift. So not necessarily something you want to get involved with there, because it's like legit on like pallets in a forklift, and they just like move it around, put it in a spot, and then that's it. And then you have to deal with the port stateside here not being able to move it. So, and that'll be another issue. So, and then maybe option 2B is getting it shipped in a container, which is going to be like $3 or $4 grand. So whatever you saved is immediately snatched up, because like an FD to roll on, roll off shipping, it's like $1,000, $1,200 depending on the time of year and the schedule. And yeah, you'll be looking at 3 to 4 to put that in a container. So the money you saved will be null and void. So, you know, if you're going to do a rebuild, unless you have an engine that you really want to put in, I mean, just, yeah, bring one over. I think it's safe. I mean, all these cars are old unless they've had something done. If you're going to put high power into it, you're going to have to take it apart anyway. You know what I mean? So think of it that way. Sometimes money you save is money that bites you in the back end. So anyways, that was story time. Hopefully you got something out of that. So two of the trucks I want to talk about here. And they are, they're not like rare. They're not anything crazy that no one's ever heard of before, but there's a really good market for them in auctions over in Japan, and I think you get a lot of value for what you have here. So first off, the Nissan Patrol. So Nissan Patrol, super utilitarian. I believe chassis Y60, the Y60s. So like 87 to 97, made for a long time. And they came in a lot of different variations: a 3-liter, 2.8 diesel, a 4.2 diesel, and a 4.2 petrol. So the 4.2 diesel is the one that people want. And that's the one that, you know, price-wise is going to get, it's going to get up there. I mean, maybe by the time you get here, it'll be like in the mid-teens, clean one, mid to low teens. Not awful, but I mean, it's hard finding a clean one, but if you can, I think they're a cool truck because they kind of look like a Jeep Cherokee, like of the early 90s, but wider with more aggressive fender flares, circular headlights instead of the squared. Some subtle differences there, but it's I think they're really cool. They used to be and they offered them the Patrol, the Safari, I believe was another model, and then the Maverick. Ford offered it, which I don't know the history there. Someone out there might know better about how that all came about between Ford marketing this and Nissan. But yeah, I mean, you could get them outfitted with, most of the models came with limited slips. You get them outfitted with a winch, factory winch, which tells you a lot about the car, you know, locking hubs, all that stuff. And the turbo versions, I think, are just really interesting. They came with manuals too. So that's one to look into if you're not super familiar with it. The Nissan Patrol. You know, if you're looking for kind of a utility, classic, some interesting design features, and not something that we've had in the States, because a lot of the Toyotas people are into, Helix, things like that. I mean, we've had versions of those. They're just called Tacomas and 4Runners. This is something we never had in the U.S. and I'm sure some other countries as well. So, and they came with a lot of different iterations. You know, 2 doors, 5 doors. They came 2-door pickup, 3-door wagon, 5-door SUV. But back in the day, I think they just called it a van. And really from what I understand, the clearance in them's decent. The interior volume's good, and they do share some chassis parts with some USDM models of that era. So it shouldn't be too hard to source things. Other than body panels, obviously, as in most of these cars, you're gonna have some issues. But as far as like chassis, driveline, it won't be awful sourcing stuff. And I mean, with the diesel ones, if you could find one that's, a lot of these were used for work, the equivalent of like a municipal building vehicle or, park vehicle here in the States. So they will have some high mileage on them, but if you find one with decent mileage, this is something that's, like 260 horsepower, a lot of torque, low end torque, and, hundreds of thousands of miles you're going to get out of that diesel motor. It's TD42. Is the motor that the biggest one that they offered in that generation. So look into that. Kind of a cool one. Another one to look in. I'm not going to spend much time on it because I really don't know much of anything about it. I've just seen one before is the Safari version. So that's just another one to look into. I don't believe there was a ton of changes between the Patrol and the Safari, but yeah. So, and for the Toyotas, and I've actually seen a decent amount of these being imported, even though, like I said, they have USDM counterparts, and that's the Toyota Helix. So you have the Helix and then the Helix Surf, which is essentially the equivalent to our 4Runner, and the Helix is like the old, I believe they were Tacomas, hard bodies, whatever they called them back in the late 80s, early 90s, but same body panel. So from that standpoint, body panel's replaceable, but you can have some better options and some diesel options in those. They had some low power, but they had inline 4 diesel options, 2.4 and a 2.8 liter. So, if you're looking for something that's not a truck you're going to tow something, but again, these are kind of fun dailies. I would say I'd classify these as like really fun, like winter beaters, right? So someone's looking for a truck that they can put stuff in, not tow cars with or anything, but that they can take up to the mountain to go snowboarding, or they can just they live in an area up north that's a little more snowy and the winters are rough, and you have kind of a cool right-hand drive utilitarian thing that most people aren't going to see. It's going to grab some attention, and it's functional and like very easy to work on to source stuff for. And you can take it to, February Cars and Coffee and get some looks. You know what I mean? I think and they're not bitted up. They're not crazy. Like I said, if you're looking for like a really clean Patrol, maybe these Helixes, nothing's going to bring crazy money, especially these Helixes you can get for super cheap and bring them over. Cheaper than, in most cases, the USDM counterparts, which I think is why some people go for them. And yeah, and you're going to get some diesel options. Who knows? You might get some side view mirrors mounted on the fenders, some cool JDM touches, especially if you get one that's modded up with some nice wheels and whatnot. So yeah, I just want to, and I might do an episode that focuses a little more on it. I guess this is more of a barometer, see if you guys care at all about any options other than, what we've talked about, kind of the JDM cars and the sports cars, and we'll get into VIPs and K cars and stuff like that, but I don't really talk much truck stuff, and there's a lot of good ones out there, and this just scratches the surface. These are two that I think are just really easy to find, and I think are good value and easy to work with, but there's a lot of different ones, and obviously there's the classics, there's the Land Rovers, there's the Land Cruisers, which the Land Cruisers I think are a really good buy right now. Actually, if you're looking for something that's reliable, that's fun. It's not going to grab the attention maybe because we've seen them stateside here, but the Land Cruisers of the era, early 90s, I think are a really good buy now because it's hard to find one that's not totally beat because they were used for work trucks essentially. A lot of like I said before, like municipal jobs, government, parks and rec, whatever it may be. Like in Japan, that's what they use them for. So a lot of them have some rough miles on them, but the clean ones are going for decent money now. But just with seeing what the market is doing here, like following them through Haggerty or whatever it may be, the market is they continue to get more expensive, the USDM versions. And I think the right-hand drive ones, we're kind of in that sweet spot where you can get the right-hand drive ones for less, but there's still a market because there's still some people that really like just that uniqueness of it being right-hand drive, even though the body and everything looks very similar. And there were some different options, from the USDM versions as well. So it's not like you're just getting a carbon copy, but Land Cruiser, and you're probably, clean one, you're going to be you'll be in the mid-teens, depending on, like anything else. And it could go over 20 if it's, super clean and has a bunch of mods and stuff like that. But, I've seen some for low teens, depending on condition. Wide variety of those. But the main thing is, don't get one from up north if you can avoid it, because it's susceptible to rust. So try to find something that's a little more south. Mileage isn't a big thing. It's mainly the corrosion with them and just overall condition. If it was used for something like work duty, it was going to be pretty beat on.
What's wrong? What happened?
Okay, so let me, I branched off for a second there. I'm sure I edited the pause out, but just in case I lose my train of thought, in the middle of recording here, my son fell in his room and just cut his head open. So I had to take care of that. But hey, as is life. As is life as a parent, we were trying to do so many things at once. But like I was saying, to get back into it with the Land Cruisers, I think a great buy right now, especially since the USDM ones are going up in value. I think that is a buy, drive, and hold, and you're getting your money back, maybe making some on it. Honestly. And just to let you know, I think I'm starting to put together a list, and I want to go over some particulars. I think the next podcast is going to be pretty intense with some data I'm going to share of data slash just my observation, what I think would be good cars to, if you're looking for something, not as an investment opportunity, but something you can drive, have fun with, and you're not really going to have to worry too much about depreciation or market or anything like that. So I'm gonna throw out a couple things there. Well, more than a couple. I'm gonna make a list for the next one. So I think that should be a good list. And if that's, if you're in the market, if you're getting ready to purchase something, coming out of the winter months here, which, if you are, whether it be a truck, whether it be a Sylvia, or anything in between, a K car, who knows? I think now, especially February, I think not as much to choose from, but I think this is the best time to buy, because you are going to be getting your car and legal and all that stuff close to springtime, so you'll be ready to roll with it, but you'll be able to take advantage of the winter type market in Japan, which, like it does in the States or whatever country you're in, when there's inclement weather, the market's not as strong. So two things there. You will get a better value. You'll be able to get something for cheaper, but you have less to choose from. So if you can exercise patience, pluck the right thing at the right time, I think this is a good time to really start. If you're thinking like, hey, I want something springtime, don't wait for spring. I think next couple months, start pushing it hard, researching hard, whether it's reaching out to me or someone else or whatever avenue you want to bring a car in. But I think we're getting close to that time if you want something fresh and ready to go when the weather breaks. So to close things out, before we sign off here, I promised you a couple cars. They're a little oddballs. Maybe not for people listening in different countries. You might be like, yeah, New Zealand, we have these things all the time. But in the U.S., maybe some oddballs. If you're looking for something that's like fun, a little weird, you can still get parts for, a bit of an attention getter, but not sports cars or anything crazy like that. So for those into the classics, so the Japanese classics, right? The old Skylines, the R30s and on back, the old Cosmos. There's a lot of really cool. I know we say anything older than 25 years is classic, but I'm talking about the mid to early 70s, 60s cars, right? And I'm not going to get into all the ones that I like, because I'll end up talking for another half hour. But there's one that stands out to me that's overlooked, that reminds me of some similar versions, similar cars at the time, that if modded, kind of like a resto mod, can look super cool, in my opinion. And it's the Mitsubishi Galant Sigma. So the Galant's been around forever. I think, the 50s, if I'm not mistaken? You know what, I'm going to fact check myself right now. So good, I'm glad I did. 69. So 69, and obviously, still around. So, but the Galant Sigma is kind of looks, has Mazda looking front lights of that era. Kind of like the, was it the RX-3, and, a bunch of other ones with the double circular headlights, kind of a wide, low-slung roofline, and a stumpy bum. But I just think a really cool car, and like I said, for if you're looking for like classic, comes in a 4-door iteration with a 2-liter 5-speed, and you throw in some proper offset 14s of your choice, old works, whatever it may be, Watanabes. Yes, you can put Watanabes on stuff other than Nissans, and it'll look good. But yeah, I mean, I just think. There's one, and I just thought of it because I've seen them before, but there's one at auction now that's red, 59,000 kilometers. It's in Nagoya, and it's gorgeous. It has the Fender Aero side mirrors. It's 4-door, low-slung, front air dam, some SSRs, I believe, and I just think it's one you don't see often, if at all, ever. There's some good aftermarket for it, and I mean, really, a lot of them, like the early to mid '70s Skylines, it shares a lot of similar body lines, in my opinion. It's just maybe there's Mitsubishi heads out there that are looking for something different, from what everyone else has from that generation. I just think they're cool. So something to look into. So old Galants, and they're not priced like other classics in Japan. One could be had for a reasonable cost. It's probably kind of in that sweet spot, like in the teens, depending on how they're done. So even low teens. For some with some slight restoration and mods on them. So yeah, it's like it's an affordable classic. Well, now we'll call it historic car. But with some heritage. So, and that's one that can be like a cruiser. It can be retrofitted with a lot of stuff. It can be a nice chassis for like some vintage type racing. If you just want something loud and low, or if you just want something period correct and stock, like it's one of those that kind of fits all those niches depending on how you build it. Now, a quirky oddball one would be the Mighty Boy, the Suzuki Mighty Boy. The Suzuki Mighty Boy, I can't say it enough. Suzuki Mighty Boy. It's it looks just like that. It looks like Scrappy Doo. It looks like that little, like the Napoleon complex little bratty kid that just doesn't realize that he's a foot shorter than everyone. It looks like a smashed version of something else with a truck bed. It's weird. It's quirky. I bet if you put some cool wheels on them, it could be something. But it's essentially, no, it's not. Well, yeah, it's essentially 550cc, so it's a K car, and it has a tiny bed. I'd say, I don't have the stats on it, but it looks like a 3-foot at most bed, truck bed, like legit. Tailgate drops down. It looks like it should have been a hatchback. It almost looks like a Golf of that era, late 80s or so, and. Yeah, I mean, the iteration I'm thinking of is late 80s, so like 87 to 90. I think are just really cool. If you're looking for like a K car that has a truck bed and that's small and like, it looks like a hatchback that you modded to put a truck bed on it. I think it'd be a head turner. You'll never see another one. And I mean, you could get one for dirt cheap, like super cheap. I mean, we're talking, here and legal for under 10 grand, maybe less than that, maybe like in the 6s. I mean, it's actually one of those cars that most of the cost is just going to be in getting here. You know, I mean, you will probably win one for like $3,000 or $2,000. So, mighty boy, Suzuki mighty boy. I don't know why I just made that Italian, but it's a mighty boy. But yeah, so that's my quirky car of the day. The Mitsubishi, not really quirky, it's just something you're not going to see every day, and I think just no one really talks about it, at least in my circles. And there's some really cool ones out there available that have been restoed, and I'd like to have one in the collection someday, to be honest with you. I think it'd be cool. It'd be a cool contrast. So, anyways, that's it. I'm wrapping this one up. I have some editing to do since we had I had some interruptions here. I had a microphone cut out. I had my son get injured, but hey, when I say I'm going to get a podcast done, it was on my list. I'm wrapping it up today. So I got it. I don't know how long this is going to be, probably 40, 50 minutes, who knows. But hopefully it's easy to follow for you guys. And listen, as always, appreciate the time, and more importantly, because I know time's valuable, but let's be real. You can listen to a podcast doing a bunch of stuff, doing spreadsheets, working on your car, whatever you're into. I mean, depending on how multifaceted your brain is, I mean, I know a lot of people that listen to them when they're answering to just mundane emails. So, but I'm still going to thank you for the time, but mainly it's the interaction. I appreciate all the questions, people reaching out. I've had some great conversations, especially recently with people looking to import. So, if obviously I have the Cedric and the RX-7 FC, still not painted yet, but it will be soon if you're looking for an FC with lower mileage and an Origin type body kit on it. Hit me up, the Cedric. Listen, if anyone can fact check me, hook it up. But from my research, I have the lowest mileage Nissan Cedric in the States. So check that out on elusiveautocode.com. And keep the questions coming. I appreciate the support. If it's convenient at a time and space to leave a review, it's greatly helpful. Just to bump me up there in the ratings. So if you like what you hear, leave a review. If you hate what you hear, hey, you can still leave a review. I'm not going to say like, hey, I just want to hear the roses. I prefer that you just email me directly and say, Dante, you suck. Shut your face. But hey, it's a free country, as far as I know, in certain standpoints. That's another talk for another day. But so in social media, of course, Elusive Auto Co. on Instagram, Facebook, Dante at elusiveautoco.com. If you want to message me directly, send me pictures of your builds. Thank you for all of those. I'm sure you know who you are that have sent me pictures of your builds via Facebook or email. I just like seeing them. And like I said, sometimes, most of the times, I learn some stuff about, builds, how things go together, what people are doing out there. So you're the pulse to my business. And I always want to keep it that way. You drive it, you keep it running. So yeah, let's keep the conversation going out there. Let's get some more JDM cars in here. If you want to bring something in specific, I have consulting services, which you have full access to pictures, startup, live bidding, not just bidding and hoping for the best on vehicles. And then, of course, you get contact with me the whole time through the process to see where things are in the stage, filling out the forms, all of that. I share everything, completely transparent, all on the table. So you can maybe do it by yourself someday, or you could just have someone else, which I recommend, take the burden for the first one, and you might see that it's not worth your time to mess with it. But yeah, so if you're looking to bring something in, of course, hit me up, let me know what you want, and I can help set some expectations, let you know what's out there, and we'll go from there. So as always, enjoy the drive. I'll talk to you out there. Peace.